just a few things that might be helpful. So just to frame this out, this section 1 is not about crimes. What we're looking for here is data around what is outside the purview of the Human Rights Act, but where there's, I took notes on this, where there is speech and associated related action that is inappropriately used around bias motivated incidents. I think there's real clarity around, like, for instance, what's normal speech and what's anti-Semitic speech. And so and that would be what is tracked, so we have a better understanding of, and then what to do with it. So section 1 is about what's going on here, and then maybe it's additional educational outreach. We're getting a lot of calls from this one school district. Is this something that we can meet with the principal about? It's not necessarily a crime situation here. Section 1 is not about crimes.
Incidents that may not be criminal. That's what I heard. So we're going to create a mechanism for reporting incidents where no crime took place, where the defining characteristic, to the extent there's any definition at all, is that somebody feels as though they were discriminated against based upon actual or perceived, that's the language in the bill, characteristics. I'm deeply concerned about the implications of this bill. We're going to create a database of incidents that have no objective standard determining whether or not they violated the law, whether or not they had anything distinct from just normal speech. If we're going to distinguish between normal speech as a category and hate speech, how do we do that? What is hate?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Hudson, for your question. You know, coming from a community where we, especially during the pandemic, when we've experienced for the first time in a long time during the pandemic, I have felt unsafe grocery shopping, simply because of the kind of rhetoric that's been used that targets Asian Americans for being blamed for the coronavirus. I think that to explain that type of experience and feeling to someone who has never really had a choice, well, to someone who has to be outside of that experience or that bubble, it's hard to put that into words. But you know, perhaps Commissioner Lucero might have a objective answer to what hate is defined.
If someone were to post on social media a particular Bible verse that defined marriage or spoke of God's institution of marriage as being between one man and one woman, or a Bible verse that spoke in condemning terms regarding certain sexual proclivities, would that posting of a Bible verse be considered an incident reportable under your bill?
Representative Vang.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just say that it is important to let our community know that we do not tolerate hate and bias incidents in this community and in Minnesota, and that we support communities that has been harassed, intimidated, and abused. Everyone is protected, no exceptions. And I can also defer to Commissioner Lucero to help shed light on the increased need to make sure that we are able to document and accurately know what's happening in our communities.
You are getting at the fact that it is complicated. It is not easy, which is why you can't just do this on one of these hearings right now. But speech that leads to imminent lawless action that's directed towards a specific person or group because of that protected class status, it has to be direct call to commit immediate lawless action related to and around that protected class status. And we don't even have a prima facie, really a baseline analysis to say, hey, could this possibly be that, so we can understand it? Does that mean proven beyond a reasonable doubt? Absolutely not. We're just looking to have a better understanding of what is likely going on out there so that you can know, hey, this is what's going on in my community. It's helpful to know.
You say that there's an objective standard, and yet this bill adds categories to the definitions, or it references the chapter of law that has definitions in it for human rights, and those terms aren't defined. So I don't know how we can objectively enforce something without definitions.
Importantly, the Minnesota Department of Human Rights and its act does not do its work everywhere. It does not apply everywhere. So as you've heard some examples, but let me give you a good real-life example of where the act does not apply. And as you've heard, this happened a lot during the height of COVID. So if a person is standing on the street corner, ready to cross to the other side, maybe going to the grocery store, we heard these stories a lot, and somebody else drives by and says something derogatory about their perceived race or ethnicity and how it's related to COVID, that's a situation where somebody then immediately starts feeling very fearful, especially when it happens over and over again. They're trying to pick up their kids from school, they're trying to get to the grocery store. And it led to just these little incidents of just really kind of starting to terrorize somebody in their own community. But in this situation, the Minnesota Human Rights Act does not apply. Is this a crime, and is it a hate crime? I am not the person to speak on that, but I will note that it gets complicated for a variety of reasons. When it comes to crimes, whether or not something is determined to be a hate crime would involve the police arriving, citing or arresting someone, an investigation, and prosecutors charging as such. So in this example, it is highly unlikely that even if it is a crime, and I'm certainly not saying that it is, but if it is a crime, the police are not getting called. If they are getting called, there will not be an investigation, there will not be a citation, arrest, or charge. So it will never be documented, tracked. No one will ever know about it except that person who experienced it and their community members who feel the residual effects of that.
I felt unsafe grocery shopping.